Hello Internet, this is Sophia. If you are an American, like me, every 4 years you go and vote in an election for the President of the United States of America. This is your chance to assert who you want to be the nation's chief executive for the next 4 years. You can favor any of a number of candidates. Let's say that this year the candidates are Devil T. Abaddon, John Lackluster, Susan B. Anthony, Lucretia Mott, and Frederick Douglass. Your first thought is that with 3 such excellent candidates as Susan B. Anthony, Lucretia Mott, and Frederick Douglass, surely you'll cast your vote for one of them. But as you follow the news, you realize that none of these 3 candidates stands a chance. That the winner of the election is going to be either Devil T. Abaddon or John Lackluster, and it's going to be close. John Lackluster needs every vote that he can get in order to win. And if he doesn't win, you will be stuck with Devil T. Abaddon for the next 4 years. So, would you rather vote for John Lackluster, even though he's not really the candidate that you want, or vote for one of the 3 candidates that you are truly excited about, knowing that that choice will increase the chance of you being stuck with none other than the Prince of Darkness himself in the Oval Office with all the power of the U.S. presidency for the next 4 years? Whichever option you take, it is fair to ask why our institution of voting has been reduced to a high-stakes game of would you rather. Ordinarily, the solution to this bind would be to institute instant runoff voting, especially a robust variant of instant runoff voting, such as, for example, full enfranchisement instant runoff voting, which was the subject of my previous video in this series. Unfortunately, there are some obstacles to doing this where United States presidential elections are concerned. No, not necessarily insurmountable obstacles, but still nonetheless serious obstacles that need to be discussed. You think that I'm going to talk about difficulty in the process of amending the United States Constitution, right? Well, that is part of it, but it's one piece in a larger puzzle. And there are other interlocking pieces of this big jigsaw puzzle that need to be discussed before I can explain how that factors into it. After all, as hard as it is to amend the United States Constitution, it has been done. 27 times as a matter of fact, as of the time that this presentation is prepared. Clearly, there is more than just that to the difficulty of instituting instant runoff voting where U.S. presidential elections are concerned. The big issue is that when you vote in a presidential election in the United States, your vote is not directly going to one of the candidates running for president. Instead, what you are directly participating in electing is your state's delegates to a single-purpose body known as the Electoral College. The members of the Electoral College are the only ones who get to directly vote for the president. So the main issue here is that there is no point in the system where we could add instant runoff voting that would solve this problem in a meaningful way. If states chose their delegates to the Electoral College through instant runoff voting, then you would no longer have to worry about creating the spoiler effect within your state, but you would still have to worry about your state's delegates contributing to the spoiler effect in the Electoral College nationwide. So that won't really solve the problem. Likewise, giving the members of the Electoral College the power to vote by instant runoff would make a mockery of the whole thing, because by that point matters are already out of the hands of the general voting public. Many people would say that the solution is simple. They argue that while the Electoral College increases the gravity of some votes, it does so at the expense of others. Since these people would anyway prefer to see the Electoral College abolished, the fact that it would open the door to instant runoff voting would be just one more advantage to a reform that they anyways are in favor of. The purpose of this presentation is not to argue for or against the idea of a national popular vote. It does, however, involve explaining why it is a bad idea to tie that issue to the issue of instant runoff voting. Now that I've explained how instant runoff voting and the Electoral College have inherent compatibility problems between the two of them, you might be wondering why the solution isn't to simply abolish one to make room for the other. You see, while many Americans resent the mathematical irregularities brought on by the Electoral College, there are also many Americans who prefer it that way. If a proposed amendment to institute instant runoff voting would switch us to the national popular vote as part of the deal, it would lose any chance of gaining their support. Of course, you might say, no proposal is liked by everyone. Why should this one be any different? This is where the difficulty of the process of amending the United States Constitution comes into play. You see, United States politics is dominated by a powerful duopoly of two major political parties. While these two parties take opposite sides on many issues, one thing that they have in common is that they both stand to lose substantial power if they have to seriously compete with more than just one another. For a long time, our very legitimate fear of the spoiler effect has been their primary method for minimizing the threat of all competition except for one another. If a robust variant of instant runoff voting, such as full enfranchisement instant runoff voting, were instituted, they would no longer be able to do this. These two behemoths may take opposite sides on every issue, from abortion to gay rights to whether or not you should be wearing a mask during a global pandemic. But on this issue, they are almost certain to be united. They will not give us instant runoff voting. Not willingly, at least. Does this make the institution of instant runoff voting a lost cause? No, it does not. Amendments that cause similar shifts in power have been added to the United States Constitution before. Most notably, the 17th Amendment added to the Constitution in 1913 that established the popular election of United States senators. However, one of the necessary ingredients for getting such an amendment passed is a broad base of support of people who on other issues might not see eye to eye with one another. The only way that an amendment to institute instant runoff voting can have a chance of getting such broad support is if it brings us neither closer to nor farther away from switching to a national popular vote in United States presidential elections. So if instituting instant runoff voting while preserving the Electoral College won't work because there is no way to do that will actually solve the problem that instant runoff voting is meant to solve, and doing it while switching to the national popular vote won't work because it has no chance of gaining the necessary support to pass, then what option is there remaining? Is there a third option that hasn't been considered? There may just be. So if instituting instant runoff voting while preserving the Electoral College won't work, and doing it while switching to the national popular vote won't work, then what option is there remaining? Is there a third option that hasn't been considered? There may just be. What if there is a way that may do away with having an actual electoral college with actual delegates, yet replaces it with something else that preserves the mathematical irregularities that the electoral college entails? Hopefully, such a system would be able to get the support of the portion of the American public that favors the Electoral College, and it would surely allow the institution of instant runoff voting in a meaningful way that would actually achieve the things that instant runoff voting is designed to do. But how could such a thing be done? Maybe if instead of having an actual electoral college with actual delegates, we could have a virtual electoral college to which states do not send delegates, but merely send the electoral votes themselves. That might solve the problem. States could determine their electoral votes based on any of a number of ways that they could choose from for applying instant runoff voting, each mirroring one of the methods that states either already use to determine their electoral votes or have considered using for that purpose under the current system. Then, if no candidate receives the majority of the electoral votes, since the Electoral College would now be virtual rather than actual, all we'd have to do is take whichever candidate received the fewest electoral votes and eliminate that candidate from the ballot nationwide, and each state could process its instant runoff votes again with that candidate eliminated from the get-go. This process could repeat over and over again, and eventually one candidate would receive a majority of the electoral votes. Then that candidate would be declared the winner and the election would be over. I may, in the future, do a video about how this would work in greater detail, but this would be a solution that would actually achieve the purpose that instant runoff voting is meant to achieve, while still having a chance of gaining the support of Americans who favor the mathematical irregularities of the Electoral College. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave your comment in the comments area below and share this video with your friends both directly and on social media. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and that the bell icon is active so as to increase the chance that you will be notified when I add new videos to this channel in the future. And until next time, see ya!